Cool. So starting the recording now. So anything you say from now on will be official because it will go to anyone who signed up for recording. So careful with gossips. No. Thanks, Georgiana, for reminder to record. Cool. So welcome everyone to third in our series of webinars on different topics on 12 pillars, different topics from positive psychology. Same as the last two. I know some of you joined. For some of you, it's the first time. This webinar will go for around 1 hour. It is likely I will stretch it for maybe 10 minutes or so because I'm overly excited about this topic. And it will be like similar to our other webinars, pretty information packed and pretty quick paced. So if you miss something, don't worry, I'll send you the slides, I'll send you the recording, so don't stress about it. And as it won't be very interactive as most of the webinars, unfortunately, I will ask you every now and then to share something in chat if you feel like it. But you're also welcome to, sit back, hide, eat the popcorn, you know who you are, and all of these things. Of course, questions are welcome. You can throw them in chat at any point. I'll try to keep an eye on chat, but if I lose something, Georgiana will also jump in and warn me of some important question and maybe answer it there. So thank you for joining today, and maybe just to warm up for the topic, you can share in the chat. Well, you don't need to share a name if you logged in with the real name. That's more if you're logged in from some weird device, then it's nice to share the name as well. But you can share, if you would like, in the chat, one of your favorite flow activities. So one of the things you like to do that puts you in flow. If you're not very clear on the concept yet, don't worry. We'll talk about that first before we dive into the tools. But yeah, you're very welcome to start diving in. So basically, how we're going to spend this hour, I'll give you like a very short introduction in where is this webinar coming from, what happened, why are we talking about this today, and then we'll spend maybe just 5 minutes talking about flow. What is flow? How can we define it? Just kind of to give us a very thin ground to stand on, a common understanding of the concept, and then we'll spend most of the times talking about 6 different tools that you can use in order to create more flow in your life, that you can use in some way to just strengthen that positive state and have more of it in a way. So all of the tools are quite practical, but we will not do most of them here, but I would leave them to you as sort of a tool and thing for reflection, because if you make your math in 1 hour and 6 tools, we have like 5 to 10 minutes for most of the tools. So we will more touch on them. I'll just drop in some ideas. I'll leave it to you to experiment. I will invite you, though, to share any discoveries and ideas in our Facebook group, in Positive Psychology Tribe, and also maybe like ask for advices and ideas from others on what are they trying out and testing and so on. I will also invite you one more time to share in chat your favorite flow activity, because I see everybody is shy and we have only one brave person sharing so far. Cool. So this webinar is a part of Happiness Academy in a way. I say in a way because it's really open to anyone and very welcoming for anyone who wants to join. But it is part of this umbrella project called Happiness Academy, within which we are trying to create a lot of different educational, also a bit motivational and inspirational, and sometimes kicking your butt experiences, but mainly it's about educational experiences, different educational materials, many different initiatives related to positive psychology and to fulfilled life, resilient life, and then also successful life. Although we think kind of when it's fulfilling, that makes it kind of successful already. We are a little bit biased there. So within Happiness Academy, we are doing 3 types of initiatives or 3 types of activities or events. One is webinars and talks. That's somehow what we are doing today. So basically content focused, kind of brief, dropping in a lot of theory and tools, aimed for bigger audience, aimed also to be shared as content to bigger audience, which unfortunately means less sharing and less practical experimenting than we like to do normally. Then the other format we do, both live and online, is workshops, which we do in very experiential way, which are really then learning focused, couple of hours spent in really also touching on a bit of theory, but much more exercises, discussing, sharing, reflection, that kind of thing, our preferred way of learning in a way. And then we also love to just facilitate really good conversations. So we have meetups in Zagreb, in Amsterdam, and virtual ones within our Facebook community to discuss all of these topics. So I'm just sharing this to give you a bit of context that this webinar is one way of engaging and learning about these topics, but there are also many more that you're very welcome to join. When we say positive psychology and when we say happiness, we really talk about these 12 different pillars that relate to happiness and to positive psychology, and that are topics for us on at Happiness Academy as the main topics we teach on, and we create events and materials and activities on. And I'm sure, I know most of you heard of 12 pillars 10 million times from me already, but I still think if somebody didn't, it's really important to give it that framework. So this year we are building up the whole year around 12 pillars, focusing each month on one pillar, which means we are doing webinar on some of the topic or subtopic from that pillar. We are sending different activities through newsletter, through Facebook, and through blog as well, and just kind of sharing in many different ways. Also doing workshops and meetups on those topics. And for this month, March, no, I guess we're a tiny bit late on that one, but for this month's March, our topic is engagement in flow. We are actually closing it off today with this webinar officially, and we are kicking off being own best friend as pillar number 4. But today we are still diving into engagement and flow. So last thing, as sort of an intro, a little disclaimer, this is not a training on flow. You will not leave super equipped with all the skills you need for more flow. This is really just throwing a bunch of tools at you, just sharing some content and some ideas. You won't have much value out of it if you don't take it and experiment with it. So I'd really invite you to also kind of follow up with each other and encourage each other to, to play with the things we share and to really explore them a little bit deeper. So thank you everyone for sharing by now a little bit more about what are some of the activities that put you in flow. I would invite you to read each other's answers, because that can really also give you new ideas, and we will share them a little bit more later. So let's get into the topic finally. Let's get into the flow. Flow is a concept from positive psychology that comes from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And if you want to dig into the topic further, I suggest to grab his book, which has the same name, Flow, and it's awesome. In which he wrote it in late 70s, I think, 78 or something like that. So it's quite an old, almost concept for positive psychology. And initially he defined it as a state of happiness practically. And he defined it as this mental state of operation in which you're really fully immersed in some action. And passing because of this full immersion. And we feel very focused, very involved, very engaged in the goal we are trying to achieve and in that process of activity, not just the goal. Georgiana, could you please ask you to spell the book name and the author name in the chat? Although I'll send it also in the follow-up email, just not to type now. Thanks for the question, Kevin. So that is his definition of flow. And to be honest, there are many different definitions, but they all come to a similar thing. So another way of explaining flow is saying that it's this experience of total enjoyment when we lose ourselves in an active pursuit of a worthwhile and difficult goal. So it's a state that's very active state, but at the same time, it is very enjoyable state. Sometimes we call it in the zone. That's kind of about the same state. We also call it optimal experience. It's also similar to peak experience. Also, there is a bit of a difference in these concepts, but we're not going to dive into the theoretical side of that. And then one of the beautiful way of describing it is this blissful immersion. That's one of the easiest, shortest ways of explaining what is flow. Blissful immersion in some activity, like state of enjoyment, of immersion, of kind of getting lost in it. So that is the shortest definition you can imagine and you can get. There are many more, and normally we discuss it quite broader and further, but we really don't want to stay with so much of a theory today. We really want to dive into the tools quick, so we're not going to stay much longer with this background of what it is, what it means. I hope this is clear enough. If it's not, please do ask for more. The reason why we are talking about flow within context of happiness, it's because it's one of the most important things when we related to our feeling of happiness and fulfillment. And if any of you ever heard of any of our topics of me speaking on what happiness is, we always talk about happiness as this really fine balance between big picture of things we are doing, between having meaningful life, between experiencing meaning in things we are doing, and then also these moments of pleasure, of engagement, of positive emotion. And then most of topics from positive psychology and most of pillars relate strongly to one of these sides. They're or more meaningful or more enjoyable. Not many are equally both. And flow is one of rare states, one of rare moments, one of rare things that really merges these two, that really allow us to experience pleasure and enjoyment, but also strong sense of meaning in the same time. And that's what makes it so beautiful. That's what makes it so related to happiness in a way. That's just a bit on the side of motivation, why it makes sense to work on this one. And last, on the side of theory, just a couple of ideas of what flow is related to understand why do we put so much attention in this concept. Apart from this happiness little thing, pleasure and meaning side, there is also strong relation between flow and creativity. Flow, it's quite flow state. It's state that's very supportive of being creative in a way. And there is a lot of background to that, but now I'll just shoot you the quick ideas. It's also related to positive emotions. We don't have to always experience positive emotions during the flow state, but they usually emerge after being in flow. So when we finish an activity that put us in flow, we usually have a strong sense of, first of all, often of pride, of content in some way, like feeling fulfilled in some way, different, well, relaxed as well, many, joyful as well. So many different positive emotions emerge, sometimes within flow, but very often after flow as well. It's also one of the best states for learning. And we're going to talk a little bit about developing skills and setting challenges. And that's where flow connects. It encourages us, it pulls us in a positive, motivational way to set higher challenges and to develop stronger skills in a way. So it's quite related to mastery as well. Most of things, people that are really good in what they do, like top athletes or top musicians, experience a lot of flow because exactly flow is what pulls them to develop mastery, to spend enough time practicing and learning to actually come as far. And then logically, with all this nice stuff, it's also quite related to motivation because it gives us positive emotion, because it helps us learn, and because it's enjoyable state. It's quite related to being motivated to do more of the activity that we relate to flow. So that's it from the theory background of it. Not going to stay with any more theory, I promise. We go straight to the tools. I just wanted you to have sort of a foundation on that. If you feel like you still don't have a full understanding of what flow is and it might be, or what it might be, I'll give you two options. One is to go look for the book and dig into the theory side. The second one is to go to Positive Psychology Tribe, our Facebook group, and just start that conversation there. Hey, I'm not figuring this out. There will be a lot of people there who might give you different ideas. So on the side of tools, one of the first, we will go through 6 quite different tools and exercises related to flow. First one is a bit on the side of still Csikszentmihalyi's learning and quite base side of flow. So probably if you were dealing with flow before and looking into the topic, you might know this one already. Later ones will be a little bit more original, let's say. So if you know the first two, stick with me till the later ones. I'm promising more fun ones are coming as well. However, when we talk about skill and challenge equation, that's something that's really in the ground base of flow. Flow practically cannot exist without having this specific balance between the skill and challenge in certain activity, in certain situation. That's even part of the definition of flow sometimes. That flow happens when we are engaged in activity that's challenging for us, but we also feel that our skill is kind of catching up with that challenge. So it's matching or it's almost matching. It's still challenging. Otherwise, if they would be matching too much, that wouldn't be. But we still have quite some skill in it, or perception that we have quite some skill in it. And we can quite well balance that. However, for that to happen, we need to have some skill already, and we need to be able to find a challenge in an activity. If that doesn't happen, a lot of other states and a lot of other emotions will happen. So if it happens that we have state or an activity in which we have it's not very challenging for us and we are not very skilled at it, usually we will not be very motivated for that activity. So maybe we'll be in state of apathy or demotivation. However, as our skill grows, if challenge still doesn't grow, it's not likely we'll get to flow. It's more likely we'll get to states such as maybe boredom, maybe relaxation, maybe state of kind of control, knowing what we're doing, but not necessarily enjoying it so much. That's if we have high skill in something, we like using that skill, but still it's not very challenging activity. So it doesn't kind of motivate us in that sense. On the other side, if we have a high challenge and our skill is not as high, then we're going to go on a little bit more stressful side. We're going to go to worry, maybe even to anxiety, or maybe if our skill almost matches, then it will be kind of highly aroused state. So it will not be flow because we will be stressing a bit too much. We'll be a little bit too tense. But apart from that, it could be even positive state for someone, but it's kind of a bit more adrenaline driven, a little bit more challenge is quite high and I'm not sure I can cope. I'm not sure my skill is high enough. And then, of course, in the magic place of balance between skill and challenge lies flow. And that's one of the beauties of that state, because it's pulling us to learn more and to develop more, to set higher challenges and to grow our skill. But it's also the challenging side related to flow, because what happens is, it happens that as our skill keeps on growing, we need to keep on looking for new challenges, and that's not always natural to us. So sometimes flow quite fades out in some activity, and we get more in state of control or state of relaxation, state of a routine in a way, just because we don't continue that gradual raise of a challenge. So not to stay with the why is this happening, but to focus more on how can we play with this and how can we explore this. The invitation is really here to use this chart with a practical reflection on activities you're doing and you would like to have more flow on. Specifically, that means to start thinking from perspective, where in your life are you not receiving that much challenge? And that can be in very specific activities that you're doing, but it can also be in areas of life in general, in relationships, at work, in family, at different hobbies. What are those areas where challenge is not really that high? And then also the opposite. In which areas of my life am I stretching too high? Which areas are too challenging and I don't really feel, I feel stressed about them in a way, and maybe I should take it a bit easier. Maybe I should lower the challenge a bit or grow my skill in a way. I will invite you, we won't be discussing these questions. These are questions really for you to take and sort of journal on and reflect. But I will invite you, if you have an answer on top of your mind, to share them in chat, because they could be also valuable ideas for others, and we will get a bit of view of how is that playing out for everyone else. So the other way you could play with this is really to take a specific area of life or a specific activity and then try to figure out on a chart, where is it falling for you right now? Are you in that activity bored? Are you in control? Where is it? What is going on? And then from there, try to understand, what do you need to raise? Is it a skill or is it a challenge that you need to raise to be able to have more of flow? So this is really something that you need to analyze in your own situation, that you need to take back in your own life, but it still stays the very core of flow. If you want to look for more flow, explore to have more flow in certain activities, this is the first place to start. We will be sharing some other tools that are very different. They take very different approach, but this stays really the core. This was really the one that I would always suggest starting from if you feel like you're not having enough of flow. Having that said, let's go to the second one. Second one is still related to Csikszentmihalyi. With third one, we are kind of stepping a bit also in different directions. Well, third one is also on the limit, but then the 4, 5, 6 are a bit different. And that one is really related to, for flow to happen in an activity, we need to have a clear goal and clear feedback. And many people know that already because it's always mentioned as one of the characteristics of flow. Yeah, for flow to happen, I need to be engaged in something that has a clear goal for me, that I know that I want to achieve something in it. Yet one thing we are forgetting when talking about flow is how much we can play with this. This is really one that's down to our interpretation. It's really down to how do I define my goal in activity, and should it be more challenging, and how can I create it into more challenging. And we can play with this too, even without changing anything about the activity. And that's why they're quite powerful way of working with flow. Clarity of goal and feedback are 2 of 10 characteristics of flow state. I outlined them here, so you would have them also as part of the framework. I know some of you have seen it already. You will get it in slides as well. We will not be exploring all of them, but I'll just go through them quickly. So characteristics of flow are that in this state, normally clear goal and immediate feedback on our progress towards that goal exists. Next to that, we are highly focused in this activity. We have complete concentration into what we are doing, which is usually related to the fact the goal is challenging. So you have to be focused because you cannot really tackle it if you're not. Then there is also this feeling of getting lost in the activity, sort of loss of ego, loss of awareness of self. More kind of focus is really on doing, not on who am I and am I doing it well and how is my inner critic commenting and stuff like that. We lose that side. We also have some sense of control. That means we feel like in any activity that's related to flow, we feel that our behavior and action is changing the outcome of the activity. It doesn't mean we are fully in control, but it does mean we have an impact. We have a sense that we are changing something, which gives the whole challenge the point, right? And then there is also transformation of time. Very often we forget about the time. It seems like we are in activity very long or very short. This is quite distorted. And then in the end, usually it's about activities that are intrinsically motivating. So we don't do it for the sake of the goal and for the external reward. Although we need the goal, we don't do it just for the goal. We also do it for the process. And that's a very important aspect of flow, to be engaged in the process, not just with the eye on the goal. So now looking at this characteristic, you can see very easily that most of them are consequence of being in flow in a way, like distortion of time, loss of ego. It's hard to work with them. Yet there are 2 that are very nice to work with. Well, 3 actually. One is goal, 2 are goal and feedback. And then the second one is focus, which we'll be touching on a little bit later. So that's why if we want to play with flow and create more state of flow in a way, we play first with goal and feedback. And then, again, this is something for you to take away and apply to your own activities. But really the way to start with that would be to, in any activity, and especially in the activities where you feel you're not having enough flow, and maybe you could, or you're feeling the flow is not that strong and it used to be, you could start with asking, what is my goal for this activity? Like, do I have a goal? What is it? Is it clear? Is it motivating for us, for me? Is it challenging? So just questioning that goal a little bit and starting from, why am I doing this in a way? And then the second part is, am I getting clear feedback to how am I progressing towards this goal? Because if we have a goal, but we don't know if we are moving towards it, it's not very motivating state. So we always want to have some sort of feedback. It can be even subjective type of feedback, but we want to define some way of feedback. How will I know that I'm moving ahead? So the question here is also always, how can I make that feedback more clear or stronger or more relevant or motivating for me? So in any activity, we're looking for more flow. First place to start is always skill and challenge. Is this challenging enough, and do I have enough of skill to cope with it? But then the second one is related to, do I have a clear goal, and how am I experiencing the feedback to that goal? Then the third tool is related to focus. And this is really about, this is probably for big majority of people today, in today's world, the breaking point. This is where we lose it, no, usually. Even if everything else is good, or even if we have skill and challenge, this is one where if you disconnect from focus on the activity, everything else is irrelevant after that. So it's really, really important part of the puzzle. Doesn't seem bigger than all the others, but in a way, it's one of the strongest ones, one of the ones most important. In a way, we could even say that flow is state of mindfulness in a way with a strong goal, and probably an intrinsically motivating activity. But in a way, it really takes mindfulness as part of it. And that's one of all of these things that is most, in a way, corrupted and challenged by our way of life and culture these days. So goals, yeah, we still set goals. People are good at setting goals. We talk about that a lot. Also challenges, we tend to set our challenges for ourselves or look for things that gives us joy. But focus is one element that's getting really weak in general for everyone. So as such, is very worth of exploring. And you can look into this in two ways and explore it for yourself. One is looking for kind of like modeling yourself at your best. So looking for moments when you feel most focused. What are the circumstances? What are the activities? Is it when I'm less tired? Is it when I'm more interested or curious? What are those moments? Is it when I'm with someone else, or is it when I'm alone? So kind of just reflecting on what circumstances need to happen for me to keep me focused, to give me that, like to help me to be focused. And then look to replicate those circumstances as much as you can in other activities and in other areas of life. That's really effective for anything you want to learn. That's really effective way. Finding where you're doing it well, figure out why, and then take it to another area. But then there is another way as well that's more like a gym approach, which is like just taking different exercises for mindfulness or focus or concentration or attention. So just kind of finding whatever. There's so many books now and so many exercises. We also had the webinar on this. So if you want to see a recording with the exercises, I can send it to you. There are also blog posts on Happiness Academy on the blog. Many, many ideas there for very short. There is even one blog post I wrote on 1 minute exercises. So there is really, in terms of time, no reason not to play with this. So really looking into adding or more conscious practices of our focus and attention. It's something that's hugely beneficial for our productivity, for our happiness, and for flow. So as such is one of the places to kind of go and explore. So I'm going to dive in towards the fourth tool, and I'm going to ask you in the meantime, from the first three things we talked about, which are all quite based on Csikszentmihalyi, although mindfulness goes a bit broader than him, I would like to ask you, which of these three do you find so far most interesting to explore? We had skills challenge, we had clarity of goal and feedback, and then we had focus, like strengthening the focus. Which one do you think for you would be kind of most interesting? And we'll come back to that after the sixth one. But for now, if you want to share in chat, that would be really cool also to have an idea of, what are you finding valuable? Then tool number 4 is basically just learning something new, doing something new, starting off something new. And it kind of makes sense because we are saying flow is all about learning and, raising the challenge and raising the skill and so on. But sometimes we are forgetting. I'm just laughing because everybody's writing focus and chat is killing my focus. So it's like, it's a bit of a trap I set for myself, but I'm happy to hear there is a lot of focus is popping up in the chat and saying everybody needs more focus, and then importance of goal. That's cool as well. Cool, great to hear. Well, welcome to follow up with me or in the tribe with looking for more ideas how to work with any of these topics. As we talked about skill and challenge, we said for flow you need to have a skill, right? Now, the problem is, whatever you start doing, initially you will not have a skill. So that means to be able to be in flow, you need to, tackle the thing a little bit already. You need to get to some level of skill. So that means when we talk about trying out new things or exploring new things, we really need to focus on also learning it a bit before we decide if this works for us or not. So this tool is all about, it's kind of like an invitation for exploring, for learning something new, for trying out something new. But at the same time, it's also an invitation to stay with that a little bit, to actually give it a chance to get to that level that you can tackle some challenge and actually that skill is a little bit higher than it might be. So to do that, we need to kind of go through two moments that are really difficult. First moment is this initial effort to start off something new. So kind of initial effort of curiosity and just wanting to experiment and just trying something new. And then the second part is all about staying with it, like practicing it. So it has element of perseverance. It has element of really sticking with it for a while. Also, and not quitting when it's difficult and when we see obstacle. But it also has this element of being continuous. So kind of finding time to do it for a while, for a bit longer while. And then there is always, with every skill, there is always a moment, even if you're experiencing a lot of flow in that skill and that learning, there is always this plateau that in a way, you need to stick with for a while to be able to move to the next level of challenge and skill, which requires a bit of perseverance in a way. So now, interesting thing with this is most of the people really like one of these two things. Or we are like, oh, let me experiment, let me try everything new I can, let me do this. Oh, I'm so curious about everything. And it's really easy to find that effort to start new things, but it's hard to stick with them. And then we have other set of people, not everybody is one or the other, but we usually have a tendency towards one. The other set that's going to stick with it and really be stubborn and go head through the wall and be able to be very perseverant, very continuous. But these people will often be a bit more reluctant to be starting new things, exactly because they're sticking with the old things in a way. And again, this is a bit of generalization, but I would like to invite you to a little bit reflect on this for yourself. Which is your strong side and which one is maybe missing a little bit? Like which one right now in your life is missing a little bit? Is it about a bit more of practice to actually get to some skill level that maybe gives you more flow as well? Or is it more about being more open, more curious, more, exploring and doing something new? You're welcome to confess in chat, but by no means obliged. No. Which is your strong side and which one would you like to kind of explore a little bit more? Cool. So I see that even a skills and challenge chart got a bit of attention in the chat, so I'm happy for that. No. Cool. Great to hear that you're having that you're having a bit of a different preferences there, which is really cool, because that's what we are aiming for. We are aiming for throwing a bunch of tools at you, but then having you figure out maybe 2 or 3 that are really relevant for you, not like doing everything and trying out everything. So if everybody wants to share, are you more into trying new things or are you more into persevering, and which one would you like to strengthen? That's very welcome as well. And the tool number 4 was really about this, learning something new by stepping into something new, but also by persevering in it. And that's one of the ways to flow in a way. And then we have tool number 5, which is kind of the opposite. If tool number 4 is learning and looking for something new and experimenting about something new, then tool number 5 is all about reflecting on what we know already. So what do I know about my flow and when do I know it from? It's 3 different areas of our life we can think about when fishing for ideas for flow and when fishing to explore our own tendencies. First one is childhood. So we can just take a bit of time and reflect and journal and kind of like, what were the best experiences, the flow experiences, the most joyful and engaged experiences for yourself in your childhood? That's one of the areas you want to reflect on. Then the second one is adolescence. So this period of change, this period of kind of growing up, looking for your identity, but not being quite there yet. Often our preferences change in that area. So in that sense, we want to explore that one as well and see how is it similar, how is it different than the childhood experience, what stayed and what changed and why. And then we also want to explore the best experiences of flow we had in our adulthood. So what are some of the hey Patricia, what are some of the experiences in our life so far, which can be longer or shorter in our adulthood, but still we all have some of it there. So what were the experiences that were most memorable there? What can we learn out of them? How were we engaged in something? And then we can map that to what were the activities, but also who were the people we were doing it with, what were the places, what was the context, what happened before or after. We can quite explore this reflection quite broad. There is value to exploring all of these 3 periods in our life and then comparing them a little bit and really thinking, what is that stayed constant in my flow experiences? That's probably something that's really, really important for me and something I want to keep on focusing to have in my life. And what are some of the things that maybe shifted and changed over time? And why did that happen? Is it that I forgot I'm enjoying something and I'm not really doing it anymore, but I would actually enjoy it, which often playfulness is the thing quite that we have a lot of in childhood and then we forget it a little bit. Or did we change, and in which way? And do we just want to let it be? And, are we missing some of the activities we used to do? And what in those activities motivate us, and how can we find it maybe in different kind of activities in a way? And then one thing that's quite interesting to also take a moment to reflect on is what surprised you in the end. So, when you compare these 3 periods and when you reflect on the childhood, by the way, if you reflect on the childhood, it can be really nice to ask your parents or siblings or friends from childhood, what did you used to like doing? Because they will usually remind you of something you won't think of. So it's quite nice also to explore it from that side and then think, was that flow? But then what is really nice is to look for surprises there. What is something that was unusual? What is something that I didn't think of in a while? Yeah, and how can I use that in my current life a little bit more? So with this one, you really want to go back to the past, to any period of past, and just dig there a little bit and look if you find something that maybe got a bit forgotten, that maybe was really important for you, but got a bit neglected. And then you could think how to revive it, or you could think how to learn from it. What can I take out of it and implement in maybe some other activities? Maybe I realize that friends are really important for me to be in flow, and then maybe I'll be building more of a group thing if I remember that in childhood it was all about friends, or that kind of thing. That kind of discoveries are something you're fishing for. Cool. So on this one, I won't ask you to share anything in chat because I think this one does require a bit longer reflection and digging, probably at least 20 minutes, just on that exercise to kind of journal through all areas and then compare them a little bit. But if you have some discoveries, I would love to hear them in the tribe, obviously. Cool. And then the last one. This is one that's probably least known from the flow theories and the flow tools, and really, really powerful. So I was very happy to share it. And it's about flow cycle. You see, when we talk about flow, we keep talking about, I want to have more flow. Let me go and get more flow. Let me strengthen the flow, find more flow, discover more flow. Yeah, just shopping for flow. But the thing is, flow is so dependent on other things that are complementing it and supporting it. So we have flow, which is this wonderful state. And if we're always in it, we will definitely miss some things in life as well. Hi, we have someone talking. No. And I don't want to be this mean person who mutes people. So behave on your own. Cool. So when we talk about flow, we could keep focusing on that part of the cycle. But actually, it all starts with the struggle part of the cycle. If you remember, we were talking about learning something new and the activation energy that's needed and the need to get to some certain level to be able to grow the skill and to feel the flow. And that really starts with the struggle. Struggle is that moment when we start doing something. And that can mean I'm starting to learn a new skill. But it can also mean I'm starting to go for a run today and I don't really feel like it, although I know later in run I'll be in a flow. So it can be in a certain activity, or it can be in life overall that I'm putting this effort to start something, yeah? That's something we call struggle because it feels like a struggle sometimes, especially on the running example. Or some. And then from struggle, to be able to get into flow, we need to spend some time on it. We need to invest a little bit of effort in it, but we also need to reach that moment when we let go, when in some way we release the tension of the struggle and we kind of, ease into the activity. It's quite related to letting go of perfection. It's quite related to letting go of inner critic and to letting go of control. So this release is the second step in a flow cycle that's really needed for flow to happen. if we come this far and after struggle we let go of over obsessing of how we are doing something, then we reach the state of flow, which is wonderful, and we spend some time in state of flow. And then when we finish flow, we usually try chase for more flow as soon as we can. And we miss one step that's really important that enable us to have more flow in general, and that's recovery. So the fourth element of the cycle is after flow experience, which is great and in a way energizing, especially mentally energizing, but it can also be tiring experience, especially physically, if we are talking more in the area of sports and so on. One element that really can break flow is if we are not getting enough of recovery between, if you're not getting sort of a downtime or just physical recovery, any sort of rest and recharging the batteries. So, and this keeps on going. So in our life at all times, it doesn't have to be this precise that we move from one area to the other, but usually these four elements will exist in our life. There will be element of struggling and starting new things, putting an effort to do something related to willpower. Then there will be element of relaxing and going into the flow in a way. Then there will be element of flow or just enjoyment and just being in the activity and not overthinking. And then there will be an element of recovery, so some sort of rest and recharge in it. So the question goes to you now, and this one is really interesting to explore for yourself. Maybe you have it on top of your mind, maybe you don't, but which of these four is the hardest for you? And especially, which of these four is missing most in your life at the moment? Like maybe you are often jumping into new challenges, going through the struggle, letting go, going to the flow. That's all really nice, but you're not really allowing time for recovery in between. Or maybe you're recovering too much, avoiding struggles of any kind. Or maybe the hard part is in this release, in this letting go of control, when we are in the struggle and we start to be good at it and we could actually relax into it, but we just hold on to that control maybe a little bit too long. Okay, so we have one recovery that's a challenge and one arrow that's a challenge between recovery and struggle. So that initial impulse of starting things. Yeah, that's in Csikszentmihalyi's book, he defines that as one of the biggest problems with flow. People know it would make them happy, but they're too lazy to start, no, in a way. So it's especially related to this, that if you ask most of people, do they enjoy more, I don't know, some sports, let's say, or watching TV, they will all reply sports. But then in practice, when you watch how many hours they're spending in statistics, TV is like total win. And he assigns that problem or that challenge to this activation energy that we sometimes miss to have. And that's something we can hack a bit with habits, with accountability with other people, with, promising we'll do something and then we follow up. Or there are many ways to play with this if you know that's your kind of a weak spot. Okay, cool. So yeah, we have some releases, some recoveries, different topics. Okay, cool. So I would invite you again for this one to explore it for yourself, to take it as a tool, play with it a little bit. And then you're very welcome if you're looking for more ideas, like for example, I'm not great at recovery, let's say. Well, which is not me actually, I'm not great at release. If you're gonna use it as an example, for me this control freakness element. So then tribe could be also a really nice place to come and say, hey, I wanna do release better, or I wanna do recovery better, or I wanna do struggle better, or activation, whatever. Who has an ideas, who's good at that? And yeah, we could be doing a little bit of sharing of that for everyone to learn in a way. Cool. So the point of this tool, of the number 6 flow cycle tool, is really if you want more flow, don't overthink just the flow. Do think about it as well, but don't overthink it. But also learn to struggle more efficiently, meaning learn to be quicker in activation and initial push you need to get to some level of skill or level of effort. And learn to recover more deeply, meaning in a way also try to find better ways of recovering that will maybe then take less time in a way. So we basically want to be, it's a bit contradictory to say be efficient with recovery as well, but in a way that's also an option. So the idea here is to look into these other areas and be more effective with all of this. So the reflection questions for you, I'll send you all of these, as I said, in slides, is really which area of the cycle is the hardest one for me? And then equally, if not more important, how can I strengthen it? How can I make it stronger? What are maybe some hacks I could use? What are some things I know work for me? What are some new things I could explore? And this is interesting because you can think about this in general. What is your tendency? That's important. But even more important is, what are you doing these days? You know, in this period of your life, which of these is kind of the most actual one in a way? So yeah, just giving you a moment to reflect if somebody still wants to share which of the areas is the scariest one and the toughest one. So we went through all 6 of the tools in ultra speed. Normally we would probably spend an hour on each of these. So no, I hope you managed to grasp some value out of it and took some ideas for experimenting. We will still wrap it up with a little bit of ideas how we can work with flow in general. Short 5 or 10 minutes. But I still wanted to remind you of these 6 tools and ask you now, I know you did it after step 3 a little bit already, but ask you now, which of these 6 is one that you think, if you would explore it more and implement it more, could be the most valuable for you to get more flow? So we said exploring the challenge versus skill equation, making sure we are challenging us to a good amount related to our skill. Then we also talked about having clear goals and clear feedback to goals. Then we talked about strengthening the focus in a way, learning from ourselves how to do that, because sometimes we do it well, but then also just doing a lot of different exercises. Then we talked about just learning new things and not just tapping into them, exploring it that way, but actually trying out properly in a way. And then also looking into the past experiences. So exploring, reflecting on what we used to did, because if we know in the past this worked better for us. If we know past sucked, then we don't look there, no need to look for something. But if we know there were some that we used to have the period of our life that was very exciting and flowy, that's a really good place to reflect on. And then we had the cycle and kind of looking into between recovery, struggle, release, and flow. Which of these for us are the ones that are most, at this moment in our life, most neglected? I wouldn't even say most challenging. It's more like forgotten sometimes, just neglected in a way. Okay, cool. So we have a lot. Oh, I wanted to give it to just 1 or 2, but like everybody's like, give me 3, give me 3. Okay, fair enough. Okay, I would still invite you, if you wrote 3, to choose. You don't need to write it again, but to choose 2 for yourself that you would actually really like to explore, because I think 3 is a lot to focus on. So, okay, so we had 1, 2, 3, 6, 5, 4. So only number 4 nobody likes. Nobody wants to learn anything new. That's good. That probably means you're learning too much already. But we have quite some 5s and 2s being the most popular. So looking into the past and clarity of goals and feedback. And then we have, we have quite a bit of everything. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think this might be your chance to buddy up, by the way. Keep an eye who dare point at the same number as you and chase him relentlessly after to buddy up on working on this. No. And sorry to the chased ones for me saying that. Cool. So to go back to the big question, how do you find more flow in life? These practical tools were already like, how do you very practically in a small picture find it? But in general, to zoom out back a little bit, there are 3 ways in which we can approach enriching our life with more flow. First one is, we know which activities are giving us flow already. Great, let's do more of those. So this one is just about, managing the time and priorities and squeezing in more of the good things in our schedule. Like if I know I really enjoy some sport or I are playing music, then that's just about creating space for that a little bit more. But then the second way is to take some of the activities we don't really enjoy so much, to take some of the challenging one maybe or boring one, and then play with it. Look how can we adapt it. Use tools, especially first 3, but all of them in a way, to adapt it a little bit more. So look into, can we have a better goal in that? Can we raise our challenge? Should we raise our skill? What are ways that we can play with this? That's something we have to do, and it is in our schedule, or we are doing it for sake of the goal and we want to do it, but we're not really enjoying it, to bring in more enjoyment and more flow in that by playing with it. That's the place where the tools are probably most effective place to use. And then it can also be this just about exploring new activities. And that's kind of similar to tool number 5, just looking for knowing what our tendency and flow are, just trying to learn something really, really new for us that we find appealing, or trying to learn something that's similar to something that's enjoyable for us. Like, for example, if I know in general sports give me flow, this could mean looking for a new sport. But it could also mean looking to learn something about music because I have no idea about it. And maybe that's something new where the flow is hidden like a gem in a way. I would invite you from these 3 to think, which of these would be most applicable for you right now? Like, is it that you're just not having enough time and space for things you enjoy and you could create more? Or is it maybe that you are needing to adapt a bit more in some of the boring activities? Or is it maybe that you could just look for something new because, maybe there is no sense in adapting something that you don't enjoy anymore? So the question back to you, which of these 3 approaches do you find the most effective for you right now? And you are welcome to reply it in chat, but if you don't have a clear answer, you can also just take it away and think about it. Okay, so we have some 1s and 2s showing up. Okay. And 1, 3 just for the, no, So Tiria, if you find flow in thesis, then we're going to take that as a case study for the next one. Cool. So we have quite a lot of 1s and 2s and then occasional 3s. So mainly it's about doing more or kind of adapting existing ones. Perfect. Just remember you said that, and do something with that. So now for the end of the call, we still have just like maybe 5 minutes left, just wrapping it up. So for the end, I would like to ask you a checkout question, which is, from all of the things we discussed, from the 6 tools and also from the 3 ways of looking for flow by doing more of what you like, exploring something new, or looking for flow in something that's not fun right now, which of these 9 things in total would you like to choose? And now I'm inviting you to choose one, because if we choose all, nothing's going to work. Which one of these would you like to take as really your kind of action point? This is something I really want to do. I really want to look into it. And do something with it. Cool. I'll give you a minute for that difficult question, and I'll keep an eye who said what, so I can see how that's going. Cool. Cool. So we have some for reflections on the past, and then some stronger goals, and then a lot of focus mentioned. Cool. Oh, I like how Katya caught one of the cycle parts. Perfect. Moving between recovery and struggle release. Cool. I think that's a really nice topic. That's definitely one, even though we are at the end of March, focused on flow. I think that's one, I'm just writing it down, that we could really pick up in the tribe, maybe also as a conversation. Just how to go through the flow, through the cycle in a way, and how to play with that concept. Okay, so we have some more past reflections and some more focused. Okay, cool. So I see the 2, 3, and 4. So goals, focus, and past experiences are really winning the game right now. So that's good to know. Cool. I would invite you to take it really for yourself as an action. I will not be chasing anyone about anything this time, no, but I would really invite you to take that action and own it and do something with it, because otherwise we kind of wasted an hour if you're not going to actually kind of, apply some of the tools in some way. Because what we did today, already, we planted some seeds, we planted some ideas, we gave you a tool in the hand, but for tool to do anything, you need to do something with that tool. Otherwise, it's not so useful. So just, own your action, take it with you, and do something with it. For the end, I would like to invite you, if you're not there yet, and I know most of us are in one of these places or even both of them, to join some of the other conversations. One could be newsletter, which is kind of a one-sided conversation, basically me sending monthly news what's going on with focus on the pillar of that month and with some ideas. No, we are not really active on Instagram at the moment. Patricia, thanks for asking. We do have also Facebook page where we release a lot of just small notes and so on. We are planning to pick up Instagram more in the second half of the year. So for a few months it will be quiet, and then you'll hear on the newsletter when something happens there, because we just didn't want to be spread into many sites. So newsletter is quite a one-way thing where we send out also the news about events and stuff, but also quite a lot of content and new visuals and ideas such as happiness boosters or overview of new pillars and stuff like that. So that's quite focused on once per month, very specific kind of more content and news. And then the second place is really focused on just conversations. And that's Positive Psychology Tribe. I know most of you are somewhere there, but whoever is not, you're very welcome to join. The idea of that place is really to come have conversation. Well, thank you for Patricia for saying that Facebook group is awesome. I'm very happy to hear that. Yeah, we really try to kind of curate that space as a place where you can ask questions, share ideas related to positive psychology and happiness. So yeah, it can only be as meaningful as ideas shared there. So you're very invited to also kind of join those conversations. And then from the side, what else is going on? We are starting 12 Steps of Happiness to Happiness, the virtual course, in which in 12 weeks on calls, we go through different activities and basically through each of the pillars, although there we don't call them specifically like that. We have a couple of alumni actually on that call on this call from that course. That's a course we do once per year. It's in 2 hours calls once per week for 12 weeks. It's very conversational, very workshopy with a lot of sharing, a very small group, very active. It's paid as well, not free as webinars and similar stuff we do. And it's starting very soon. So if anybody is still interested, we still have a couple of spots. So just talk to me, not to talk about it much more now. If curious at all, there is a ton of information on the website, but we can also just talk about it. I'm very happy to always talk about it because I love it. It's one of my all-time favorite things. I'll also in April I'll be very virtual. I'll disappear. No, so that's a good news for those who are far away. So I'll be doing several online workshops as well. I know I'm doing live design in April, and then strengths, and then for other topics I don't know. It might happen one is on flow, but more workshopy, so like 4 hours and very much more going deeper in some of the topics and more experiential. Maybe pillar 4 on best friend, I'm not sure yet. Anyway, if you're on newsletter, you will know about it. If you want to know about it, get on the newsletter, and if you don't, I'll stop talking about it. No, so that's it from everything that's going on. Our next webinar planned is something related to pillar 4, meaning something related to self-compassion, self-love, being our best friend, scary, cheesy, scary topic, wonderful one as well. So I hope to see some of you there. I'm still not sure if we will take the whole topic or something more narrow, but you will know soon. I will maybe in a week launch it as an event on Tribe and also on the newsletter. I'll send the news about the date. It will be somewhere in the end of April probably. So now, as we are at 7:59, no, yay, with the webinar, getting it on time is really a challenge for me. So short, so much stuff, so much awesome stuff. So what I'll do now is I'll stop the recording, but I can stay for another 10-15 minutes if anybody wants to discuss something, like if you have some questions, if you want something to share, and I will send the recording and the slides to all of you. In each case, but although give me a week on that, I'm having a bit wild week this week, so expect it next week. Yeah, but other than that, if you have any questions, you're very welcome to share them. I was trying to stop the recording, but that did not quite work out. Okay.